Gail and I have worked at TCIS for over 20 years, and I think it's 22. This is our 22nd year. Wow. All right. And we've held several different roles here. For Gail, she's always sort of moved up in her status at the school. When we both started here, we were dorm parents, but she also taught 2 classes of math, correct? Good. I did not check this story out with her first, so I'm doing it on the fly, sorry. We both started out as dorm parents. She was teaching 2 classes. She eventually moved to full-time teaching when we left the dorm. Then she became the head of department. A few years later, she was promoted to IBDP coordinator. Okay, I'm looking for the head shake. Good, good. Soon after that, she became part of the school administration and made director of academic affairs, K through 12. All right, we're getting there. Now she holds the position of secondary school principal, so she's the principal over the middle school and the high school. Oh, good job. She's had an amazing career of advancement here at TCIS and her status over the 20 years. Now, I, on the other hand, have had a different experience in my career at TCIS. And let me start off by saying this because the head of school is here and I don't want there to be any confusion. I love my job. I got it. Still got it, thank you. I thought you were talking about like the mojo going on, but you're talking about my job. I got it, all right. And I have, most of the things I've done here at TCIS, I have loved. My years as a dorm dad were incredible, and Gail and I loved the girls in our dorm, and we have fond memories of our time in Smith Dorm. But there were a few years after that I was asked to be in administration, and that was not the best fit for me. It wasn't a comfortable position for me, but my status on campus was never higher. I was one of a dozen or so administrators who would meet with the head of school weekly or so to advise him on stuff happening on school. I was in the loop, y'all. I was in the loop. I knew what was going on before others. Nowadays, we'll get to that. I wore a coat and tie to work every day. I was third tier on the chain of command. I had enough power to suspend students. And oh, did I suspend students. Over 100 students as my time as an administrator. I'm not proud of that. Yes, I am. Okay, no, not really. All right. I had enough clout to help sway hiring and firing decisions. I was in the loop. And my title was Residence Life Assistant Director, not assistant to the director, for all you that had that in your mind. Been watching too much of The Office. Eventually, the school decided, it didn't need that many administrators. So the number was reduced over a few years down to about 4 administrators. That 4 did not include me, which was totally okay by me. And like I said, that job was not a comfortable fit for me. I was moved down-ish to spiritual life director. And my direct supervisor was the head of school. So I still had direct contact with the head of school. 2 years later, my title changed to spiritual life coordinator. All right? My direct supervisor became the director of student affairs, not the head of school. I no longer had direct access to the head of school. The following contract, my title changed again, this time to spiritual life minister. This is the title I now have. And my direct supervisor was the deputy principal. Okay. I have a contract coming up right now. I'm in the middle of it. I don't know what my title will be, but I think it may be principal's husband. All right? Hey, actually, if it said that, I'd be totally okay with it. And like I said, I love what I'm doing. And there were reasons for every title change, for every change in my direct supervisor. They were not demotions in the traditional sense. So don't feel bad for me, okay? It's more comical, just things the way it happened as TCIS evolved and grew and that kind of stuff. And while it's true that my actual position on the chain of command is at its lowest these days, I love that status. I don't care about the title. TCIS has not done me wrong. TCIS has not done me wrong. All right. TCIS lets me do what I love doing, what I've been trained to do. And I have nothing but love for TCIS. I love where I'm at, and the title I have is a great one. In fact, there was a recent discussion about changing my title again, maybe, me sort of picking my title possibly, but I didn't want to do it. There is something about having a lowly status that helps you identify with Jesus more. And so I want to be more about that, not the titles, not the position, okay? So I am a loser, and I love it. All right, our series, you'll see where we're going with this. Our series for this month is called Loser, Embracing God's Upside-Down Kingdom. I hope that through this series that we can explore the concept of losing in life, how it affects us, and look at some moments of losing in Scripture, but then explore how losing should be reflected upon in light of Jesus' teachings. Specifically, those spots that often look like failure in the world's eyes is precisely where God's strength and purpose shine through. All right, this picture back here, it's a little hard. Let me help you out. Things seem more right, more normal now. Get your bearings. We're going back. Okay, so there you go. Okay. So last week we touched on the kingdom idea that to lose was to gain. We talked about the things of this world that we needed to let go of so that we could gain Jesus, to be followers of Jesus. We also discussed that in those moments when we feel like losers, we need to focus on God's wins and not our losses. Well, this week we will talk about the idea of status and choosing humility over honor. We have several scriptures we are going to dive into to help us try to untangle this idea of foregoing status and why God is calling us to choose humility over honor. But first, let's make a statement, and this is kind of we need to understand this, and that is that the heart wants what the heart wants. I think all of us enjoy getting a little recognition from time to time, at work, at home, at school. The human heart desires to be honored for doing something worth noting. And everybody likes being told, thank you, well done. There's something primal about being the best and letting others know it. The heart kind of needs acknowledgement or credit for doing something it thinks is important. So everybody loves getting a trophy. Can we play that? Oh, it's there. Can we have sound? Might need to restart that. But it's The Simpsons. We don't really need to restart it, do we? We got it. Hang on. Or not. We don't. Like I said.
Study, this mouse was denied food whenever he failed to find his way through a maze. The mouse ended up dying of low self-esteem.
I had a nightmare where that happened to Bart, but I never told you about it.
I love it when you don't tell me things.
This mouse was given food whether he got through the maze or not. And this fall, he'll be in a lab at Harvard.
We're gonna get, the sound is off. Don't worry, I'll explain what's happening. We lost it, which is perfect for this talk, whatever. So basically, they go, Marge and Homer, I can't remember if I get all the names right, are at this seminar about how to, improve your child's life or whatever. And basically the lady starts talking about praise and all this kind of stuff. And eventually she gets to certificates and trophies. And so Marge walks away thinking, that's how we fix Bart. Just give him a trophy. And so everybody loves getting a trophy, even if it's for nothing. We love praise. Our hearts desire praise and recognition. But that can get you into some trouble. Jesus warns us about seeking status and seeking honor. And he explains this at a dinner one Sabbath. As he's eating at a Pharisee's home, he begins to notice that the other guests are being particular about where they are sitting at the table. And so this is his response in all this. There we go. Luke 14. When Jesus noticed that all who had come to dinner were trying to sit in the seats of honor near the head of the table, he gave them this advice. When you are invited to a wedding feast, don't sit in the seat of honor. What if someone who is more distinguished than you has also been invited? The host will come and say, "Give this person your seat." Then you will be embarrassed, and you will have to take whatever seat is left at the foot of the table. Instead, take the lowest place at the foot of the table. Then, when your host sees you, he will come and say, "Friend, you have a better place. We have a better place for you." Then you will be honored in front of all the other guests. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So this is crazy. Jesus gives us some practical advice on why we should be humble so we don't get embarrassed. And obviously he's tying this to something greater. He's speaking about the heart's desire to be exalted. And he's warning us not to be cocky, thinking that you are greater than you really are. And we've all seen those moments in sports when someone is being too cocky and then something embarrassing happens. We're going to try. Let's see what happens. Watch the big guy. Sound's not necessary. Oh, yeah. Every one of us is like, yeah. Don't be too cocky. Or something like that will happen. Or you think maybe you're the smartest person in the room, or because you're the oldest, you're the wisest, or whatever. This one does have sound.
TS, C+. The report shows undeniable qualities, but as usual is way off subject. What does the formation of lakes in Montana have anything to do with the east-west migratory path of Canadian geese?
Sir, I'm not sure if you read the introduction, but I laid out
You think you're smarter than everyone else, don't you? As for the diagram, it's very pretty, but scientifically erroneous.
Really, sir? Because I sent it to Discover magazine, and they liked it enough to publish it.
Do not play games with me, TS. You're out of your league.
We have some technical difficulties. I'll explain this one. He's a student, and the teacher's coming around telling him about his grade. Gets a C+, I think, and he's trying to. And the teacher says, "Well, what does this have to do with that?" And he's just saying your stuff is in error or it's not right. And so the student starts to say to him, I don't think you read the introduction. And the teacher starts to turn around and scold him for whatever. And he's pointing at the picture and says, "Oh, that's a pretty picture, but it has nothing to do, whatever." And so then the student says, "Well, I sent it in to Discover, and they published it." And so it kind of puts the teacher back on his heels a little bit. And so, all right, I'm a loser. All right, here we go. Losing your status can be embarrassing, and it can hurt. And Jesus was trying to warn us not to get too big for our britches, not to be arrogant, or else we might get humbled. You know, during the pandemic, Gail and I both reached platinum status with Delta Airlines. A little Delta thing there. Yeah. Just a little flex, not much. It's been really cool to have that status. We've had some amazing perks as platinum medallion members. We get automatic upgrades into Comfort Plus, which means we get a little more leg room, and we get moved up closer to the front of the airplane. We get put on a short list to receive upgrades to possible business or first class. And I think once or twice a year, we usually get this upgrade, which is really nice. We get free drink vouchers, which I have so many of these things. I've never used one. And I keep trying to give them to the people in my row just to be a nice person, and because I'm never going to use them all. And it's like, no one takes me up on it. And this year, well, actually, we also get into some lounges, the ones that are international, not in America. But that's how you know you really have status with an airlines, when you get the passes to the lounges. Well, this year is our last year to hang on to platinum status. Is it January we lose it? Oh, darn it. We lose platinum medallion January. It hurts to lose status. It does. I think we've reached silver medallion, which means you get like free slippers or something like that, or free drink vouchers. I don't know. Losing your status can hurt. Being humbled can be embarrassing. So Jesus is calling us to be humble, to start from a position of humility, to spare us that. It will save you a lot of humiliation if you begin by being humble. But other than avoiding embarrassment, why would Jesus want us to humble ourselves? As Christ followers, we are called to imitate Jesus and to have the same attitude as him. Listen to what Jesus said here, what he's quoted as saying. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Jesus did not cling to status. Jesus is God, but he gave up his privileges to be obedient to God. He lowered himself to do something great. And just to give us kind of closure, here's what God did in response to Jesus' humility. Therefore, God elevated him to the place of highest honor and gave him the name above all other names, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue declare that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. The main idea this morning is this: Jesus, though divine, lost his status by becoming human. And this is our model for true greatness in God's kingdom. We're asked to humble ourselves, be obedient to God, and do the hard things that he's called us to do so that we can have the same attitude as Christ. He came as a slave, as a servant. He found his groove in being lowly. Being a servant is greatness in God's upside-down kingdom. So find your groove in having the same attitude as Christ by finding space in your life to be a servant, to start with humility. You know, a great example of this is Mother Teresa and her work with the poor in Calcutta, India. She started as a teacher at St. Mary's School for Girls and quickly moved up to the position of principal. In 1948, she left the school to serve the poorest of the poor in Calcutta. She left a title to work with the forgotten. And starting with almost no resources, she went into the slums, helping those who were sick, destitute, and often abandoned by society. Her work was incredibly challenging, both physically and emotionally. But she committed her life to it because she believed it was her calling from God. Mother Teresa faced criticism, difficult living conditions, countless personal sacrifices, yet she remained humble, insisting that she was merely a pencil in God's hand, allowing herself to be used by God to show love and compassion. Her humility and dedication were central to her mission, and as she served without seeking recognition or fame. So listen to her in her own words. If you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know what you are. Mother Teresa had a great understanding of humility as a grounding force. By staying humble, she believed one could remain unaffected by both criticism and praise. She kept her focus on serving others rather than seeking approval or recognition. She chose humility over honor. Having this type of focus will serve us well in the kingdom and here on earth. So let me make this statement. Status is not wrong or evil. If you move up in status because you're doing a good job, praise God for it. Continue to work hard for the Lord. This could be God's plan. God works through whoever he wants, doing whatever he wants. But seeking status simply to gain recognition, to garnish praise, you may be stealing glory from God, and you might just be inflating your own ego. If your attitude is to pat yourself on the back and say, I achieved this, I made this happen, I accomplished this, God is being left behind. So as people of status, of position, of privilege, let's use our status to serve others. Have the same attitude of Jesus. Be humble, thinking of others better than ourselves. And that's kind of the end game of this talk today. And so why is it important to let go of status and not seek after it? When you put your focus on being humble and not on being honored, God's greatness shines through. Your life points to something greater. But it also brings something a little more meaningful into your life. It brings freedom. The power of letting go of status brings freedom from anxiety and worldly comparisons. Status often brings stress, competition, and comparison. Jesus encourages us to find freedom from those pressures by focusing on kingdom values rather than the worldly attachments. So foregoing status means freedom from anxiety and worldly comparisons and the work associated with those attachments. When we let go of seeking status, we free ourselves from the anxiety of maintaining status, choosing instead to prioritize eternal spiritual values. Values become more important while status becomes less consequential. Ingvar Kamprad was a Swedish businessman and billionaire with a net worth of $3.3 billion. He was the founder of IKEA, the inexpensive Swedish furniture store, megastore. Who has a piece of IKEA in your home right now? There you go. We know what we're talking about. All right. Now, Ingvar passed away back in 2018, unfortunately. Kamprad started his entrepreneurial venture as a young boy, selling matches to neighbors from his bicycle. He found that he could buy matches in bulk very cheaply from Stockholm and then sell them individually at a low price and still make a good profit. From matches, he expanded to selling fish, not Swedish fish, but actual fish. I thought, oh, that'd be cool. Swedish? No. Then to seeds, and eventually to ballpoint pens and pencils. The acronym IKEA is made up of the initials of his name, Ingvar Kamprad, IK, plus those of Elmtard, which is the family farm where he was born, and the nearby village of Agunnard. I probably butchered that, but IKEA, now you know what IKEA stands for. It's not a Swedish word, it's an acronym. Ooh, yeah. But there's one thing you need to know about Kamprad. He bought secondhand clothes to save money. $3.3 billion, and he's thrifting. Values seem to be more important to him than status. He once said, it's in the nature of small land to be thrifty. Small land is referring to the Sweden's southern agricultural region where he was raised. And what he's saying was, that it was in his nature to be thrifty, right? Not flashy. Kamprad didn't seem overly concerned with keeping up his status. He was more preoccupied with living with principles and holding to his values than flaunting status. Worth $3.3 billion, and he loved going thrifting. Who knew? If you focus on being rich or powerful or being the smartest person in the room or having more privileges than others, if you are looking for recognition, you will always struggle with the shackles that accompany the anxiety of maintaining that status. And the only status that believers should be seeking is that of Christ follower. Now, I've thrown a lot at you today, a lot of cliche type statements, but here's what I want you to leave with. Jesus is our example. He gave up his divine status to serve humanity, even unto death on the cross. He demonstrates true greatness through humility. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. And Jesus was exalted. His name is above all names. True greatness is not found in being great, but in treating others as greater than yourself. And God is the greatest. That's the true litmus test for being humble. How do you treat others? And maybe even, how do others treat you? Pastor Tom Norton, who was our pastor before Pastor John, said this once: "You know you are a servant when you get treated like one. Putting others before ourselves keeps us humble. Putting God above everything keeps our status in check." Let me give you some takeaway, and then we'll get into some reflection. Here's our takeaway. The heart desires praise and recognition. Losing status can hurt. Being humbled can be embarrassing. We are called to imitate Jesus and to have the same attitude as him. And there is freedom in letting go of the pursuit of status. This morning, as we reflect on this, I'd love for you to think about how you treat others, because that is the litmus test. That's the true mark of being humble. Do you treat others as beneath you, lower than you? Or do you see them more important than you? That they are a priority above you? So let's just reflect on that.